Let's start, shall we, by looking ahead to the clash tomorrow. Manchester United taking on Spurs. And who would have thought, what world we have walked into where everybody believes that Manchester United are going to get the victory at Old Trafford tomorrow. Nedum is a blue Mancunian. I imagine you've seen quite a few United fans suddenly putting their heads above the parapet these days.
Honestly, I thought they had a massive fan base beforehand, but wow, in recent weeks, it's astonishing. We're talking about maybe half the earth. But yeah, fair play to them. They're happy. The team's doing well. They've got a former player in there that's doing well. They've won games against Arsenal, against City. So the energy's up. And I think that game last week to sort of score a winner as late as Sesko did, then yeah, the vibes are absolutely high. Whereas from the Spurs perspective, you know, they're still having questions about Thomas Frank and so on. So I've seen this before as a positive for United fans. It feels like they're mostly back for right now. And if anything, between now and the end of the season, their route to success is far clearer than anyone else's. They have X amount of games left, nothing more to play for. So I expect them to win this game and, you know, in some ways, potentially quite comfortably.
It's not just the results. That's a big part of it, obviously. Yeah. The way that, not how they've played, although it's been more energetic, it's been more dynamic, it's been more pacey. They've got the results, obviously. A little bit more fortuitous last time out when it looked as if it was going to go, they were going to drop a couple of points. But just the fact that this drab manager is not there anymore. If you look at the last 3 games of Amorim when it was falling off a cliff, obviously it's nearly double the points, more than double the goals, more than double the attempts. If you like XG, that's up. And the distance covered, so they're working a little bit harder as well. And when you take into account the 3 games, his last 3 games was Wolves, Newcastle and Burnley. No? Producer, Mike, tell me. He's told me earlier. Wolves, Newcastle and somebody. Leeds. And then Michael Carrick's first games were Man City, Arsenal and Fulham, much more difficult teams. Then they have got a bit of momentum. And you know, whilst they had those numbers for Amorim at the end were indicative of his time, they were against weaker opposition, and all he did after it was bemoan. They just needed something. And thus far, Michael Carrick has gone in, kept it relatively simple. They've played better. He's made good substitutions. I'm thinking Cunha coming on 2 occasions and changing the game. And everybody's just been up for it. So you can't ask for any more. There's a little bit of passion, a little bit of belief, and there's not somebody walking about on a daily basis who is the go-to guy, the manager, and when the manager's walking about and it's all doom and gloom, what do you expect from the players? So it's been much better, everything, work rate, goals, chances, centre-halves defending, full-backs in the full-back area, everything you could ask for Michael Carrick thus far has gone well. Now, it may just be like Man United.
Yeah, Monday we could be sat here.
It may just be like Man United to come up against a Tottenham team that are decimated with injuries and whose league form has been pretty dire. But it could be 4 out of 4 in terms of a start for Michael Carrick in terms of wins, and that for the boardroom, who must be going like that at the moment. In some sense, this is a relief because this could have gone horribly wrong. If it's 4 out of 4, it has been a magnificent start.
I mean, there's a possibility that they don't win this game, but I don't envision us sitting here on Monday if they do lose, talking about what a disaster it was and how they weren't putting the effort in and all of those things. I just don't see that happening. And we always talk about it's one thing to have ability, but what goes on inside your head is just as important.
Right.
And there's no question that Manchester United players, and don't get me wrong, this is not the Manchester United of 10 years ago, whatever it is, but what's going on between their ears is a freedom to actually play, and they're enjoying themselves. And any footballer who's enjoying playing will run till his legs collapse. If you're enjoying it that much, you will give every single last ounce. And Casemiro's probably the best example of that. Come off last weekend, he could hardly walk off the field, but it's just a different ball game. So I don't envisage coming in here Monday, Sunday, whenever it is, and talking about...
Tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow. Talking about how this team is just a shadow of what we think Man United are. I just don't see it.
Well, you got Casemiro, who's announced he's leaving at the end of the season,
Yeah.
but it looks as if he's actually happy to be there now.
Aye.
It looked, you know, when you think about what he's won in the game, and then he realised himself that he was struggling, but he was getting thrown under the bus. And it looked as if it was affecting him. Even for somebody with his experience, having played at the Bernabeu, under that pressure, and you well know that. Now he looks as if he's enjoying himself. He's got that extra step because he thinks...
He's only got one job now.
Yeah, and
He used to have 2 or 3 jobs.
Well, particularly if Agarty was in there as well. And then Bruno Fernandes in beside him.
Garnacho.
If you put Fernandes beside him, which was the case,
Yes.
and you know we brought this up a lot on the show, you've basically got an attacking midfielder, stroke number 10, as your midfield partner. So when he goes missing, as he would, not in a bad sense, but goes to join in attacks and does stuff, there's an even bigger hole for a 30-something to cover. And so Kobe Mainoo comes in, who might not be everybody's cup of tea, but he's a natural central midfielder and he's a little bit more, should be more adept at the positional sense of the game, as well as a decent passer. All of a sudden, they've got a better balance. And, you know, one of those players wasn't wanted, Kobe Mainoo. Casemiro looks more comfortable, and as you know, we've talked about it, the head scratcher was Bruno Fernandes not playing further forward. So it's just freed, at this moment, it's sort of freed everybody up. And we said it when they signed these players. They're not a perfect side, as Stevie said. They're not championship material. They're far from it. But when they signed Sesko, Cunha and Mbemo, at least, they were better than they were. And they should have been better than they were. Because those are good players, particularly the job Mbemo's done since he's came in. And I think thus far, Carrick's, you know, again, it's early, just realised it's not that, it shouldn't be difficult. Round pegs and round holes. That's back to the basics of every sport and every manager and every team. When you start chucking Szoboszlai at right back as Liverpool have and all these things, it just brings problems up. Round pegs and round holes, and that's what Michael Carrick has done at the moment.
Stevie mentioned the psychology of it, Nedum. You've had your fair share of bad runs. When things turn around, as they have for United over the last few weeks, it must just be night and day, just simple things like going to training, having lunch.
Yeah, going to training is a big thing, but what I would say is even bigger is getting a chance to go and play at Old Trafford with a positive atmosphere there. You know, when you've got 70,000 people there, they're excited to watch their team, as opposed to 70,000 turn up and wondering when it's going to go wrong again. Because that place itself, obviously, it's only been 3 games, but the positivity's there. You saw before the game last week, they had all the flags out in the Stretford end. Players were like Dallowood bringing their children out onto the pitch before the game, and there were smiles there. They were excited for a game of football, whereas previously there was almost this cloud that was over them. And I think that stuff can make a difference. And, you know, to call it what it is, like, in my opinion, like, Ruben Amorim leaving, it's like addition through subtraction. Because in reality, when we look back at his records through that time at United, yes, he could end up being a great manager in years to come, but he was awful for them. I think the fact that, you know, he stuck with the formation, nobody was buying into it, was always a discussion. They were one of the most inconsistent teams you could see. You know, losing that final last year, finishing where they finished last year. And then somebody comes in and all of a sudden, the morale seems higher. Players, as guys are saying, are playing in their better positions. You're seeing a side now who want to sort of attack at speed. You're seeing individual players' quality, and you see them going to try and attack and get at teams with a sense of confidence. Like, these are the same players that were there a month ago who were being doubted and being spoken about in such a negative manner. So I think, yeah, from a United standpoint, they're getting a feel of what it could be like to play for them in a positive moment. And obviously these moments don't necessarily last forever, but I'm sure for those guys who are going to go and be playing at the weekend, they know what their setup is, they know what their roles are, and they know that the style of football they're going to play is something which they want to get the fans up off their seats, which unfortunately for United hasn't been for a long time.
I bet they're back to loosening the salt at the lunch tables.
Oh, messing around.
You know that one, the oldest one in the book. Get the drinks.
How excited he is by that.
You get the plastic drink cups. You get the one at the top. You cut the bottom out of it.
I know. I tell you who isn't happy at the moment.
Fun.
Spurs. No fun at Spurs.
When last was there fun at Spurs?
Look at their Premier League record this calendar year. It is so horrendous. Yet to win a game. Obviously, there's been second half showings.
Champions League, son.
Yes, obviously Champions League. That's a discussion for another day. But that is disgusting for a Spurs side, of course, who always have higher hopes than maybe they should, but even so, it's not where they want to be. And what's interesting, we saw this in the City game, didn't we? This game of two halves that we've seen on more than one occasion for Tottenham Hotspur this season. Abysmal in the opening 45 minutes, kind of get it together a bit after the break. Now, how do you explain it? Who is to blame for that?
Actually, no, I honestly couldn't tell you on this one. This one seems like it's more of a deep-rooted thing, and I think also as we get towards, this final stretch of the season, they've also been very good away from home, which again, I don't understand. I think some of the inconsistencies, we've seen some teams who are around mid-table who also have those. And I think that game last week against Man City, like the first half was as bad as you could possibly imagine. And you'd like to think there'd be a reaction. But also, you're playing at home. Maybe start well, get the crowd behind you from the get-go. And you never know which way that game could have gone. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's a happy place at the moment. But then, as I say, the complete opposite side of it is like they finished fourth or whatever in the Champions League phase. How does that work for a team that's struggling so much? So it's very hard to put your finger on. Obviously, the captain himself and Romero's got some issues. Other players have got issues. I'm not sure if the fan base are fully attached to Thomas Frank as being the best manager for them. But somehow they just, I don't know, they keep ticking over. And who knows, maybe this game for them tomorrow against United is a good chance for them to continue that really good away record. Because if it's a defeat and it's another game this year where they haven't won, then again, the questions about Frank arise all over again.
It really is. It really is simple. Away from home, they don't feel the pressure. And there's probably less expectation. We've all just sat and given our predictions. Nobody's giving Spurs a hope.
Right.
But this is probably the type of game where they might do something because they don't have the pressure at home. There's nothing worse than walking on the field at home and before there's a ball kicked, you can feel it.
Right.
So when you go away from home...
You've got nothing to lose almost a little.
It's almost, and it's kind of... Look, there's 11 of us on the field. We need to stick together today. We're away from home. And somehow that kind of galvanises you. But there's no question. Other than the pressure at home, it's down to the manager. At the end of the day, we're not quite...
So what's he doing wrong?
Well,
what's he doing at half-time that he's not doing at the start of the game? Like, how do you explain it?
Well, you can't explain it.
Right.
At least under Ange, we knew exactly what we were going to see. Now, whether you think that's right or wrong, the players know it, the fans know it, everybody knows exactly how they're going to play. Under Thomas Frank, we have no idea, and I couldn't sit here in all honesty and tell you, what's this team trying to do? Do they want to put balls in from wide areas? Do they want to try and go through the middle? Do they sit back and try and counter? I don't know, because every time they step on the field, they do something different. That's got inconsistent written all over it, particularly at home.
So at Brentford, it's okay for him to play this counter-attacking, small club mentality, bang for your buck, using the data to sign the players, as they did and did very well, and utilise the pace of, first it was Ivan Toney, and then it was Mbeumo and Visa, and play that kind of style. And as Stevie mentioned, that's okay away from home. You fans can accept that. You go away from home, you're a bit coy, you have a good shape, and then you maybe play a bit of counter-attacking. I mean, not if you're City and Arsenal and Liverpool and teams like that, but if you're other teams in the league, that's kind of how you go about it, particularly when you play teams that are stronger than you. But I think what they've done, they've been sucked into that kind of mindset at home. But not only have they played defensive, they haven't played the majority of their first halves with any great pace about their team. They've sat off teams. They sat off Villa in the FA Cup. That was a game that I did. They sat off this Tottenham team, and it was embarrassing in the first half. You mentioned it. And what changes is there is nowhere else to go. It is, you go into half-time, the crowd are baying for blood, they want the manager sacked. Every time the players play a sideways or backwards pass, they're getting booed. And so out of desperation, they basically come out and chuck all the mud at the wall and see what they can get. Now, that's not got any staying power. It just hasn't. Yet the best teams come out and do that from the start and try and get the game by the scruff of the neck. And I feel Tottenham have got back into games because other teams have taken the foot off the gas a little bit and they've realised there's going to be a lynch mob waiting on them when they go to the car park. Right. Because it's been so bad at times. And so therefore you kind of expect in a lot of these games the second halves are going to be better because they couldn't have been any worse. The big question is, can they have a 90 minutes of football that's productive and sustainable going forward? under this manager? That's the big question, because what he was expected to do at Brentford, and by the way, with a poorer squad, they're playing better football now, Brentford, than what Thomas Frank was, and they're actually playing a good style of football. But what he was expected of there is not what he's expected of at Tottenham Hotspur, whether they're the most successful club or not, which they're not.
And it's not changing this season. We're in February. We've been talking the same thing.